hello, everyone. It's Heather with the Leadership with Heart podcast. And today I'm really excited for me, a Friday, to be talking to someone who I actually consider a friend from a distance, Phil Burgess. And he was on a podcast of mine maybe a couple of years ago. I can't even remember the exact time, but I will put the episode is in the show notes. So you'll just go check that out and you'll see the previous episode. And I decided to have him on today because over these last couple of years during the pandemic, I've been seeing that he and his family took on a special project related to community. And I've always wanted to know a little bit more about it. And he's shared a lot of his journey out on social. And so I thought I'd invite him on to talk about that and some more things related to the pandemic learnings that both he and I have had. He's chief people officer for an agency, and of course the work I do. So just wanted to bring him back and share some of those and just learn from that. So welcome back, Phil.
Thanks. No, excited to catch up. It's been a long time. It feels like a lot has happened for us and generally in the world since last time we spoke.
My gosh, was it pre-pandemic that we spoke?
I think it was either pre-pandemic or maybe in the early days of the pandemic where we all thought it was still the time where we were thinking, oh, this is all going to end in a couple of weeks. Like in a couple of weeks, we'll be back in the office. So
I think you might be right. It actually may have been 19. You might be right. It might be 19 actually.
Yeah, I have a feeling it was just before it all started, but certainly, the world feels like a very different place these days.
It really is. I'm trying to settle into it and meet people in their needs, meeting people where they are, that whole person leadership thing that many of us talk about. Trying to be there for people and be an ear, and at the same time fill myself up. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about how you've been filling yourself up. What's that project that you've been doing since 2019 that really has taken off for the community?
Yeah, I can definitely. I'm happy to share. I guess it all started. It started on December 31st, 2019. So a few months before the pandemic, it was New Year's Eve and it was snowing. I live on the South Shore of Boston, so of course it was snowing. We went for a walk. We have two young children, my wife and I, and they were going crazy in the house and we needed to get some fresh air. So we went for a walk on our local beach, which is about a mile away. And my wife would often just take a plastic bag with her and pick up the odd bit of litter or odd bit of trash she saw lying around on hikes and that sort of thing. And so she had a bag with her and there was just a whole bunch of litter blowing around on the beach that day. So we picked it up and stuck it in a bag, and I took some photos as I always do. And when we were walking, I said, wouldn't it be amazing if every time someone was out, they just took one bag with them, and if everyone just filled a bag with trash like you do. And we were thinking like, yeah, that would be kind of cool. So I said, why don't we just see if we could start a family project? Maybe if we stuck this on social media, maybe we could inspire other people to do that. And maybe it would be a cool family project for us to do in 2020. We're the kind of family, like we both come from a sales background. So we always sit down at the end of the year and reflect on the year, and we set our goals, but we don't really set New Year's resolutions per se. But we were like, this could be a cool project for us. Maybe it will teach the kids something. So I literally, as we walked through the door, I got on Instagram, typed in some sort of handles to try and set up an account, and sort of stumbled on this idea of just one bag 2020. So we stuck up a photo of us on the beach and we were like, hey, join us. Like our goal in 2020 is to try to inspire people around the world to pick up 2020 bags of litter. Wouldn't it be cool if we could trigger a ripple effect? So we got all excited. We had New Year's Eve. We went out the next day, filled a bag, went out the next day, filled a bag. And for the first sort of 5-10 days, it was just us doing this. And we spoke to our friends and family in the UK and our parents, and we were like, it'd be really helpful if you could go out and pick up a bag of litter and put it up on social media and tag us. And for the first sort of 20 or so days, not a whole lot happened. And then my mum did one, and then my wife, Sarah, her dad did one. And then a neighbor did one. And then someone random did one, and we were like, oh, this is working. We put a hashtag every time we did it. And then it started to sort of snowball. And one of the local high school students did one, and then someone with a lot of friends in our local town did one. So their friends started doing it. And And by April, which coincidentally was my wife's 40th birthday, we hit 2,020 bags, and people were putting up their photos. And we some of them were people who were doing it for the first time, but we also discovered this whole community of litter pickers on Instagram around the world who were doing what we do. So they go out every day, like when they're on a hike or walking down the high street, they just fill a bag and we found it really inspiring to see that other people around the world were doing this, and people were sort of supporting each other. So yeah, on my wife's birthday, we said, what if we could do this? We should increase our goal. What if we could get to 10,000? And by August, 10,000 bags had been collected. And we started tracking the different states. So we had people doing it in Colorado and California and Georgia and Florida and different countries around the world. And then by the end of 2020, we changed, well, towards the end of the year, we changed our goal and said, what if we could inspire 2,020 people to do this instead of just collect 2020 bags? And I think it was like Christmas Eve at the end of the year, and we were about like 400, 500 people short of our target. So we did a shout out on social media and said, I don't know if we're going to get to our goal, but if you know anyone who could get involved, could you just like spread the word, tag them? And then over sort of Christmas through to New Year, another 400 or 500 people joined in, and we were getting photos from like neighbors and locals, and someone sent in a photo of a bag they'd collected in Antarctica, because we'd had bags collected in all of the 6 of the 7 continents. And someone was like, I've got a friend in Alaska, let me message them, and then you'll have a collector in Alaska, and I know someone in Malaysia, and have you had a bag from Malaysia yet? So yeah, at the end of the year we had 24,000 bags collected across something like 46 countries and all 7 continents, 45 of the US states, by 2,400 people. Some people just did one bag, and then some people really got into it. And one of my colleagues at work, Andrew, and my team, she collected a bag, her dad collected a bag, her uncle collected a bag. He then went on to collect something like 1,500 bags in the year, and they started a family litter picking challenge where they've continued doing it. So it just became this kind of crazy project that we did, where we learned to load and got it kind of helped fill me up, particularly when the pandemic struck. And I can tell you a little bit about that, but I'll pause.
Wow. So are you all going to, what's your next goal? Are you going to just continue this, or is it kind of now you just let it go to the world?
No, so we're continuing it. I mean, it got really challenging counting bags every evening. It was getting to the point that we were like, every evening it would take us an hour and a half to like look at all the people who had tagged us and counted the bags and go back to them all and say thank you. And yeah. So I think we're now up to about 50,000 bags collected around the world, because we're now 2 years in. And we last year we established Just One Bag as a not-for-profit. My wife, who is really the driving force behind this, she's the person who I think has helped me see that it was a core project, but now collecting litter is sort of a gateway action for making you more aware about the impact you have on the environment. So I find that as I pick up, I don't know, 100 plastic Dunkin' things or plastic water bottles or Bud Light cans, you start to see the impact of your own consumption. So she's trying to take it to the next level. And actually, she's in the middle at the moment of setting up an eco festival here in our local town, where she has, she's been in touch with a load of local businesses. She's coordinated a group of local people, got the permits, sorted out entertainment, and she's got 25 companies coming to an eco fest at the end of April to try to help people one, buy from local businesses, but also think about what could they do, what is just one action that they could do to do something positive for the world. And it sounds kind of a little, I don't know, it has given us hope, honestly. Like we were feeling a little bit out of control, particularly when the pandemic struck, I guess in March, and it was sort of serendipitous that we had set this up, because this became something we could focus on when the world was feeling so out of control. But I guess as we've gotten older, and if I'm honest, as we look at our own children and see them growing up, and the general sort of crisis in the world around climate change, we were just feeling like, is there anything we can do as a family? We recycle, we try to eat less meat. My wife is now vegetarian.
Oh,
There's various things we're doing, but we were like, are we doing enough? And it just felt like this was something that we could do to try to make a small difference, even though there's still days where it feels like in the grand scheme of everything that needs to
mhm.
change in the world, this barely makes a dent, but it
Mm,
helps us feel like we're in control. And I hope it's teaching our kids too that you can make a difference, you can trigger a ripple effect. And if
mm,
if everyone does one small thing that leads to one small thing that leads to one small thing, I know that's kind of how change happens. So I know
mm,
that's our hope, and that's what we're hoping we will continue to inspire as things grow.
I love that so much. Ah, such ah. So just listening to that story for me, I'm filled up because I do think, one of the things the last couple of years, I've been speaking more on topics of resilience than I have on almost
Hmm.
anything else. That and of course the caring leadership stuff. And it wasn't like I ever set out really to be this person who talks about it. I just kind of started off in my story. But one of the things I talk about when I train or speak on it is this idea of focusing on a mission that's bigger than ourselves. And that when we have that mission that's out in front of us, it almost grays out or blurs out, like the teams meetings that we're in a lot, where it's like all gray behind us. It kind of helps to do that. It's like a bullseye that we
Hmm.
can focus on, and I feel like that's what you just described so beautifully. How you had this thing that you start out that you just kept, and you were focused, and it's like everything else. There's a lot of bad stuff going on around you, but you have this really great thing that, by the way, made more than a dent, and will continue to do
Yeah,
in the
I really
world.
hope
It's so
so.
exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
and
just
and
really
again, I
cool.
feel like in some ways it's not entirely unselfish. I think what I learned, particularly when the pandemic struck, there were moments where I think so many of us felt like we were consumed by Zoom calls and overwhelm. Um, and there were days where, I mean, I remember there were days where I broke down at my desk because I was just like, I can't deal with this. Like we were dealing with job eliminations and mental health challenges and
Mhm.
everything. And there were days where I would just be like, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to pick up a bag of litter. Like I'm going to go on a run, and it would somehow center me, and it became like I don't meditate, I don't do yoga, and it was sort of this centering thing and this one small thing that I could control, um, which became a really positive mental health practice for me. And yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't making a difference, but it did really make a difference to me and help me show up better,
Mm.
and help me have some discipline about finding that time to just do something else and switch off. So I don't know, that was an unexpected benefit for me on a personal level too.
I love that. And so, what else has been happening? And so, you're still at the same organization. You're still at C Space, is that right?
Yeah.
And
So I'm
yeah, you're still there.
yeah.
And what's been going on? Like, have you seen any in the last couple of years? I know we talked about like there's mental health challenges and like what are some of the learnings, I guess, just in the business space and the corporate space, and even in the work you do there as it's an agency, right? Marketing, is that what it is?
Yeah,
Marketing
so we're a
agency.
customer agency. So we help brands connect with their customers, really understand their lives and their worlds, and then develop products and services to really meet those needs. So mainly by building online custom communities and researching, developing insights with their customers.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's certainly been a tumultuous couple of years, as I reflect. Like I know it's hard winding back the clock; things move so fast. But as I think of I mean, I think it's almost to the day, literally, that I sat on my sofa and wrote the note to our organization saying, sort of, COVID has struck and we are going to become effectively a remote organization overnight, and debating with our leadership team, is this going to last a week? Is this going to last longer? Should we have people in the office and not? I mean, that was 2 years ago to the day almost. Um, and then I think one of we've learned a lot. I mean, George Floyd's murder back in 2020, in the May of 2020. And I think the fact that we were also disconnected, that was a moment of reckoning for us as an organization, like it was for so many. Like we ended up closing our business a couple of months after and spending a whole day um, reflecting on those events, reflecting on how diverse and inclusive our organization is or isn't, and the role that we need to play in breaking down the system. That I think has been I don't want to say a positive thing coming out of the pandemic, but I think that sense of like enough is enough, and we have to try and change some of the things that are broken in the world. And I think for us as an organization, that has been an increased, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but there's an increased sense of responsibility that as an organization, we have a role to play in social issues, in environmental issues, in issues to do with, I guess, the politics that is sometimes left out of business. So that has been a challenge navigating that. I think figuring out the boundaries between the role we play as an employer in providing a support structure for people, and how you can also help people see that they have agency in their own experience has been challenging. So we've coordinated programs to help people deal with the mental health challenges that they're experiencing as a result of the increased pressure of the world, increased isolation, stress at work. Trying to build a culture where people can feel safe, be their whole selves, and at the same time helping to try to empower people to take ownership of the things that they can control, whether that's going for a walk, switching off their camera. Yeah, it's been one of those. I mean, it's been a crazy couple of years where it's been like focused on the business, focused on our clients, trying to keep things growing, and then just dealing with this external pressure that I think has sort of manifested in organizations and in people's lives. And it's not been easy. I feel like we've got some stuff right and we've got a lot of stuff wrong. And I don't think we're even really halfway through it. I think it all continues as we think about things like the Great Resignation and people reevaluating what's important to them. We're very much in the thick of that right now.
Did you still stay? Did you all come back to the office? Did you stay do hybrid? But how are you handling that?
So we're sort of moving to a hybrid structure where we're asking people to be in the office a couple of days a week, and then at home the rest of the time. So we've reduced our office space. About 1 in 3 C spaces is permanently remote. So we've hired a lot of people during the pandemic across the states. So I think that's been a really positive thing, and actually it's helped us, I think, be more inclusive and more empathetic to the needs of people who are not based in offices. And now we're hopefully through the worst of the sort of the Omicron variant, which sort of slowed down our return plans. We're now, we've just been back a couple of weeks where people are sort of navigating all of the new ways of working and what it's like to make sure we're now including people who might be at home, and where we've got some people in the office, and how do we work across these different spaces. So we're kind of in the middle of all of that at the moment.
You know, you are absolutely a unicorn, as I just for those who are listening, Phil's a couple times he's mentioned in my book, The Art of Caring Leadership. And there's just very few, like, as I think about the men who really show up with that sense of empathy and awareness, personal awareness, self-awareness, and emotional intelligence, and just all of those things, all those skills that we really do need, those gifts, because they really are gifts to those that look to us for guidance. But I know do you ever feel, you've got to, because I know I had, like, in the corporate environment, do you ever feel like you're sitting there and like you have 5 heads, like people are looking at you like you have 5 heads, like, okay, well, do we really have to focus on the people so much? Do we really have to care about the people so much? And you're like, yeah. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do feel that. Like, I think like it's a challenge, because I think on the one hand, I'm chief people officer, so my role is to advocate for our people and to have a perspective on people. The risk that, and I sometimes feel, is that people can put that responsibility on you and then focus on other things. Whereas I believe passionately that people centricity has to come from all leaders, and you can't just sort of push it over here. So there are moments where I feel like I speak out and I make that point pretty clearly to people. Yeah, I think it's hard. I think particularly in a company where we're part of a holding company, we have to hit our quarterly sales targets and deliver a certain amount of revenue. And I think I might have talked to you about this before. Something that's always triggering for me personally is when people talk about, I don't know, focusing on people as like the soft stuff, or the like, why are we worrying about do we need to worry about making people happy? Is that our job? And I would often say, like, no, I mean, our job is not necessarily to make people happy, but like, we can still be kind, and we can still be compassionate, and we can, I do think happier, engaged employees will be more productive, and more engaged, and help us grow our business. And it's hard because at the same time, yeah, you have to talk about the numbers and the growth, and you have to push for that. Yeah, like, it's a lot. And I think the responsibilities for people leaders, not just like chief people officers, but anyone leading people, have increased over the last couple of years. And the expectation now is that you do have a point of view on world events, and that you are focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, and you're also thinking about mental health, and you're also being a role model, modeling the right level of vulnerability and not being too vulnerable. So I think there's a lot of pressure on leaders. I've certainly felt that pressure the last couple of years in how I show up, and I feel like all eyes are on me, whether I'm doing something right or whether I'm doing something wrong. And is this a good thing that I'm going for a walk during the day? And on the one hand, I'm modeling the importance of switching off. On the other hand, I'm conscious I have a level of privilege and seniority, which a more junior member of staff might not feel that they have, in terms of being able to switch off and go for a run in the middle of the day. So I'm conscious that one person might view my midday jog as a positive thing, and someone else might be like, well, that's fine for you, but I have a very different perspective. So that's all stuff that's going through my head as I'm thinking about, I guess, how I lead, and how I show up for people, and how we build culture.
And I think about too, because I know I've seen, in addition to the stuff related to the Just One Bag, I've also seen that your agency has been doing a lot of work on the DEI front, and you brought folks in to help with some of that. And so I can hear some of that in your language, which is always good to hear, because sometimes we can partake in a training like that, or have people come in, and sometimes it just does not get ingrained. It's just a 1 or 2 or 3 time occurrence, and maybe a few people will. I am curious to know the impact you've seen with just like working, working with a firm or whatever, having, asking for help, or bringing more of the DEIB focus to the organization that you're in. Any impacts you're seeing? Do you see anything that you feel like it's feeling more ingrained, or do you feel like you have a lot of work to do in that regard?
I think both. I think it's feeling more ingrained, and we still have a lot of work to do. So, I mean, if I think back to the day that we closed the business after George Floyd's murder, it was about 2 months later. And I remember the internal debates we were having at the time, which there was a school of thought, which I think many businesses went down, which was, we need to get out there, make a statement, and make some commitments, and get that up on social media. And I think those businesses faced a lot of backlash when they then didn't follow through on things. And I remember at the time being criticized internally for not having made a statement publicly. And I remember some quite heated conversations amongst our leadership team around that. And I was very much on the side of, I don't think making a statement externally is the right thing to do, because we have so much work to do on ourselves. And actually the focus of that first, we called it a DEI day, was very much about working on ourselves. And it started with a survey of our staff, which was delivered by some of our mid-level employees who felt passionately about this. And it was a very candid sort of expose of the things we were getting right or wrong, and how people felt about living in the organization. We had a couple of sessions with our leadership team, including our CEO, and where many of our BIPOC employees, I mean, they spoke their truth. They talked about their life experience. It got super emotional. It was very angry, rightly so, and got a lot of issues up on the table around how they experience our organization and how they experience life, frankly. And I think what we looked at our sort of talent acquisition and where we were recruiting. We actually didn't get super structured about reaching out to lots of different schools or anything, but we were much more intentional about the talent we're bringing into the organization. So since then, I think 60% of our more junior level hires identify as BIPOC, and 37% of our hires last year, and we hired about 100 people, identify as BIPOC, which was double what we were seeing before we were being much more intentional about this. We're still focused on inclusion. Like we now publish a pay equity report, which we put out to the whole organization twice a year, which looks at pay equity by gender and race. And we're looking at sort of velocity through the organization. We're looking at promotion. We're looking at internal equity across roles. So we're trying to be more transparent. And we're also being honest that it's great that we've made some progress at junior levels, but we haven't made enough progress at senior levels. So our executive team is still currently all white. We have invested and promoted people into vice president positions. So we now have a vice president of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we've just put another person on that team. We've established ERGs, and we're talking about now how do we compensate ERG leaders for their time to make sure that they are sort of being paid for the work that they're doing. And yeah, representation has increased from, I think it was 16% back in 2019 to 22%, and it's now 26%. 26% BIPOC representation across the organization. And we're looking to get that to, we want to represent the reality of the cities that we're part of. So we've set some goals across the next couple of years. So yeah, I mean, I'm proud of the progress we're making. I feel like we're trying to make DEI everyone's concern. So it has to start with leadership. Like there's a big role we play as a people team. But whenever we're talking about it, we're talking about like, what can you do? So it's about me, it's about we, it's about work. And we're trying to help teams in the business see that everyone has a role to play. We're all at different places in our journey. And it's as important for us to do internally as it is with our clients. And that's where we're also seeing a lot of positive progress as we help our teams understand that the role that they can play in challenging clients, because we're in quite a powerful position because we build these online communities with customers. Clients have biases, and they are often doing research with certain groups of people who may not represent the reality of the world out there. So we're in a position of power in being able to say, actually, like you're only researching with this group, or what if you like reframed that question and talked about different types of gender identity. So we're looking at how can we be more inclusive in our research design. And how can we push clients to think about the stories they're telling or the people that they feature in their communications. So yeah, I'm proud of the progress we're making. And of course, there's plenty of stuff not working and still a load of stuff to do. We make some progress in this area, and then we're like, we're not as focused on other areas and other dimensions of diversity as we think about how intersectional it all is. Like we need to make more progress on inclusion around people with disabilities and different religions, different cultures. It's big. It's big.
It is huge,
but
isn't it?
We're trying to act, and we're trying to say, like, let's not be perfect. And the cliche of like, don't let perfection be the enemy of progress.
Absolutely. And it's a cliche, but it is so true. And I think because there's so many of us just individually on our leadership journeys, personal leadership journeys, or organizationally looking at that, we can just get so stuck in, well, let's not start because we're not going to do it all. We're not going to do it all, so let's not start. And it's like that. That is not the way to do it. And with all of it, thinking of it as a long journey, as a process, and it's not a destination in any shape. You'll never arrive. And it's up to some. That's like, for those who are super goal oriented, they want to know they arrive at a destination. Well, maybe we can put some short goals and you can arrive at those short goals, but you're not arriving at an end zone here. Inclusion, diversity, belonging, equity, all these things are going to be ongoing. And like you said, it's everybody's responsibility. So I love that how you've really focused your organization on that. That was one of the things that I wasn't doing as much work on pre-George Floyd, and then boom, because my whole firm's focus is on listening, creating cultures of listening. So then everything was on DEI surveys, listening sessions for diversity. I couldn't completely. It's like it just got to be such the top. I was like, wow, this is crazy how much it really kind of overloaded the firm. So, and it's calmed down quite a bit. And so there could be, I'm seeing some shifting. And so I'm hoping it doesn't calm down too much. Like I want it to stay where it's like, this is hyper focus. This is a strategic pillar. We're going to keep this at the forefront and not let it slip away as a side of this.
Yeah, we're really conscious of that. I mean, we're conscious that I think at the beginning there was so much energy and emotion, and I know I think we were quite brave and provocative about some of the areas that we went into, and then I think as we went into some of these topics in a little more detail, and as we started to consider different types of diversity, you can start to feel things moving away from some of maybe the tougher issues. So if you think of the tougher issues around race, we started to get into introversion, extroversion, and different working styles, which I believe is really important for in a business, but at times I think we could feel ourselves moving away from the really tough, gnarly ones towards the things that feel a little bit safer and more accessible for everyone. So we've recently been having some conversations, and actually I was pushed by our CEO Jessica to say, like, are we doing enough around the tough stuff? Like, let's not lose that side of things. And do we need to, I don't know, be brave and back to that, like, let's get uncomfortable again. Have we got a little bit comfortable? Do we need to push ourselves to tackle the issues that we're not getting to, like senior leadership representation, and what are we really doing there, and how are we like advancing our mid-level talent and making sure that there are clear routes to senior leadership for them, so that we don't sort of feel good about our representation at junior levels and let ourselves off on the hook with our leadership team.
Oh, man, Phil, like always, it's just a huge pleasure. Like I'll probably have you on like every couple of years, because I think there's always something new and interesting. And you know, your level of transparency, your level of honesty, you know, that North Star of empathy and leaning into other people's, you know, what's going on with them. And just the fact that you seek other people's perspective, you don't stay in a silo in your own head. And so many leadership lessons in the discussion we've had, and you're sharing the project you started with your family. Now it's like a worldwide phenomenon, is so impressive. So I wanted to make sure I had you on here. And for those who are listening, are equally as inspired as I am by Phil, his work, his mindset, do share this far and wide. And don't forget to connect with him too, Phil Burgess, on LinkedIn and on Instagram. Go look for that Just One Bag, I think, is another thing to be following. And then, of course, don't forget to write a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, because this is the kind of content, this is the kind of stuff that really changes us, right? We are inspired, we learn when we listen to this. So write that review, go ahead and share this far and wide, and just, you know, continue to be thinking about how you can lead with heart. And Phil, thank you again so much for sharing all of this depth. It's a good way to send me into my weekend too.
No, it's been a pleasure. Yeah. And if anyone wants to get out there and join in with the campaign, all you have to do is like collect a bag of litter, stick it up on Instagram or on Facebook and hashtag it Just One Bag 2020. And then we can add you to our informal list of collectors. And yeah, you never know who you might inspire to go out and do the same. Yeah, that would certainly make me happy, and I can share it to my kids. They always love to see new collectors getting involved as well. So no, it's been a pleasure, Heather. Thanks so much for inviting me to take part.
I love this, and thanks everybody for listening to Leadership with Heart podcast. Be well.